Starting the stream. And the stream be starting. And now that the stream be starting, now I can refresh. Oops, that's the wrong button. Oh, is that the right button? So I'm pressing this refresh button until it shows me I am streaming. It seems okay, now it's kicking in. So now if I refresh this, it should show me recording. What's up, Dave?
Live now.
And let's make sure that the sound is all the way off. Let's go to this camera, and I'll go turn that thing off. Since I'm wearing this wireless microphone, I'm not going to trip over myself and kill myself. Totally worth it, not killing myself. Death by microphone cable, which has happened almost a few times.
So hey, what's up, Dave?
What's up? All right, I forgot.
Hi.
We're live. Hey, this is What's Up, Dave, my daily stream where I catch up with my friends on the internet and
in real life.
In real life. This is ZenLINUX in the chat room.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everyone. And you're in the area visiting friends and family.
Yep.
And we're
the
just
West
going
Coast.
to... So tell me where you come from, Zen.
Okay, so
Should I call you Zen, or would you prefer Scott?
just Scott is fine.
Scott is fine, okay.
Yeah, ZenLinux is what people call me on IRC or online chats or things like that. But yeah, so I actually grew up in this area, Nashua, New Hampshire, and lived up in the Seacoast area because I went to UNH for a while, and then moved out to Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
And I've been there for now 9 years, going on 10.
It's been that long, wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
And really enjoyed it. I kind of consider that move to be one of the best things I've done in my life because it's just brought me out to a lot more opportunities and personal growth and stuff that's happened over those years, and really enjoyed it.
Did you move there first, or did you have a job opportunity that brought you out there?
So the way it worked is I went to the Ruby on Rails conference, RailsConf, in 2008.
Yeah.
And I went there with a friend of mine, and we had my wife and I had a couple of friends who lived out there. And I remember at the time I was kind of getting pretty passionate about bicycling, and I really enjoyed bicycling. And I remember when I went to Portland, I was like, wow, people really do bike out here, and there's lots of bike infrastructure and bike lanes. And the climate is pretty mild and stuff throughout the year. You know, usually winters are just kind of like light rain pretty frequently and everything, but it never gets to the point that you really need to feel cooped up being inside.
Yeah.
You got easy access to hiking and stuff within like a 20 or 30-minute drive of the city and everything. And my friends took me out on a bike ride before I ended up coming home. And that was like probably the one thing that really precipitated convincing me that we just had to move there. So I came home, I told my wife, who was really burning out from public school teaching, and basically said, hey, we got to figure out a way to move out there. And so we both agreed that whichever one of us found a job out there first would trigger the move.
Nice.
And so she basically said she wanted to take a break from teaching at public schools, and she applied for a job through AmeriCorps doing conservation work, like watershed restoration work. And I said, okay, that's going to be it. I went to my employer at the time. I was working for a company that made home audio, multi-room systems and things like that. And I told them, listen, I got to move out there. And they said, well, we'll let you continue to work remotely for a while.
Really?
So that was really great to be able to do that. And then I did that, and then ended up moving over to Intel in the Open Source Technology Center over there.
Sweet.
And that was kind of the story of us moving out there.
I didn't know Intel had an open source center. Do they still have it?
They don't have much of one anymore. They kind of dismantled it as of a couple of years ago. But it was really going to gangbusters when I joined it and everything. So they have their graphics drivers. They had, if you remember, the MeeGo project, which is when Intel was trying to get into like phones and things.
They did.
And it was
I don't remember at all.
Well, it was a kind of a failed project. They kept trying to push themselves into the phone space, and it wasn't successful. It was a valiant effort. And then when I was working at Intel, I was working on an embedded operating system called Open Embedded, or it was kind of under the umbrella project, something called the Yocto project. And I was working on that, and then kind of became a technical evangelist over there too for some embedded system boards that they were pushing. So
I want to ask you about what a technical evangelist is, but I also want you to put on these headphones so I can hear what yourself sounds like, because it might be cool. So you can hear the sultry sounds of your own voice.
Sultry sound. You mentioned before you thought I had a good podcasting voice.
Yes. Yeah. So now you're hearing it. And look, we have 5 people watching.
Oh my God.
5 people.
I'm so sorry. All of you. I'm sorry.
So the wonderful thing about YouTube is that it lets anybody get on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the excuse. So sometimes people ask me why I'm doing this. I says, well, they're not stopping me, basically.
Right. Yep.
And like there's so much stuff out there that like there's plenty of room for people who don't know what they're doing to learn in that place. For some reason that doesn't bother me, failing in public.
Well,
so,
I think that's a key thing.
It is a key thing. I think it's an important lesson that people can learn.
Absolutely.
So, technical evangelist. So, so when you were working in your remote job, you said it was in some sort of audiovisual company. What were you doing there?
Yeah, it was a company called Sound. They're based out in Newmarket, New Hampshire.
Okay.
And they make what are called multi-room home audio systems. So things where usually stuff that's like built into your walls, and you could pipe music like into your kitchen and have speakers in your ceiling and things like that. Stuff that was fairly high-end audio systems. Yeah. For honestly, it kind of rode the wave of the housing boom. Before the big meltdown happened in 2008, and people would just kind of be willing to spend 5-figure sums to upgrade the audio in their house and start to get into home automation stuff with lighting and things like that too. But yeah. Yeah.
Were you doing some sort of program? I think of you as a programmer. So
yeah. So I was working on a product that we had that could. It was kind of like a CD player that would rip your CDs, stored in various formats you wanted. Of course, we were kind of an audiophile grade company, so FLAC was an option, or high compression rate, MP3 and OGG, and things like that. Yeah. And then it had 3 independent outputs, which was kind of funny because we were using a little mini ITX motherboard in there.
Really? Huh.
And we used the 5.1 sound system with it to turn it into 3 independent audio streams, even using the subwoofer jack by fiddling around with ALSA and its ALSA configuration under Linux.
It's ALSA configuration?
ALSA, the Linux sound system subsystem called ALSA.
Oh, okay.
ALSA.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
I learned something new.
Yep.
And then, so you were at Intel for a while, but were you hired as a tech evangelist there, or you grew into that position?
No. So because I was working kind of in the embedded space at Sound, we were working with some other devices, and we were using the open embedded, basically distribution building system to create embedded devices. And when I came to Portland, I was participating in the Portland Linux user group, and I gave a talk on the open embedded build system. Oh, cool. And the hiring manager for the team at Intel that was putting together this whole thing for the Octo project was there in the audience, and he came up to me at the end and he says, hey, I'm actually putting together a team, working with this technology. I think you did a great presentation and everything. And in a way, that was most of my interview at Intel was him coming and seeing me there. The rest of it was mostly a formality.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So it really speaks to the idea of like getting involved in communities and putting yourself out there and talking about things that you do as ways of finding new opportunities too.
I can really, that really resonates with me. I never thought of it from that perspective.
And sharing your work and,
let's show your work, to be involved with community. I guess I'm just trying to learn that now. Like the co-working cafe thing that's sort of as an extension of, well, I'm going to play around with YouTube. It would be nice if there was some way for me to see what people were saying back to me in a way that was better than the YouTube chat experience, which kind of blows. And then technical nerdity, just sort of like, I wonder how this stuff works. It's kind of cool to be able to switch things live. And it's been the fascination I've had with what I think of as performance by proxy. Being introverted, I don't like the idea of going up on a stage and having me be the center of attention. It's much easier for me to go up there and have something I'm talking about be the center of attention. So I am the conduit or the vehicle for that. Right. And so I guess I see this video stuff as being a way of kind of my intermediate stepping stone toward. So I'm not saying like, hey, it's me, Dave. It's more like,
like
I'm here.
YouTube vloggers out there who it's kind of like, look at my life and how great it is. And that kind of thing.
Whereas I'm much more comfortable saying, here's my life, and there's cat poop all over the floor, and like I am not in a happy mood about it. That seems more real to me. But it's not. I don't think it's the kind of thing that people want to see. I heard a buying noise. I don't know where it came from. Did you hear that, or did I imagine?
I heard it, too.
That was probably a phone or something.
Oh, yeah.
There's probably this. Oh, it's Slack. That's what Slack sounds like, I guess. Anyway.
Well, you do have those. What I always look forward into in your streams is the show and tell.
Oh, yeah.
when you had interesting things.
Yeah, I try to put those in the front so
Yep.
people who get bored can leave when we start talking about productivity
Yeah.
and things like that. Oh, the technical evangelist stuff. So you were working in a embedded systems group of some kind at
Yep.
Intel,
Yep.
and we were just talking before, and you're saying that you're also consider yourself an introvert, and to become a tech evangelist. What was the thinking behind that? That's fascinating.
I guess it was just part of my love for the community aspect of it. I thought it was
Oh,
really
yeah,
neat.
yeah.
Because when I was in college back in the late 90s and early 2000s, like I was really passionate about Linux and open source and the philosophy behind it and the community behind it.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I ended up working at Intel in that open source technology center, I think that was a pretty prestigious group to be involved in. And I felt like in a way I had really met kind of lifelong goal of mine, you know, to actually get paid working on fully open source. 100% of it was open source.
Right.
And the community aspect, it was kind of neat, you know, and I wanted to keep getting involved in that. And I felt like being engaged with the community was an important part of that. And I think part of the way I experience my introversion is I'm okay in certain settings when I know the rules of the game. And so giving presentations and stuff is kind of like a format that I can understand and be involved in, and I can do all the prep work beforehand to get myself to feel comfortable with it. And likewise too, sometimes even going to meetups and things like that, I've found a little hack trick to this is, you know, when I walk into a place and I don't know a lot of people, I mean, it's an anxiety, you know, inducing thing. But the trick I usually do is I show up at mixers and things like that, and I look around for somebody who obviously is in the same situation as me, and I walk up to them and I act like I'm part of this group, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? Welcome. Have you been to one of these before?" And,
that's great.
And then I'm like, and then I try to bring more people together, and then I've got a little group going on to where people can talk and connect.
That's ingenious. You're
It's kind of like
camouflaging yourself by using the husks of other people just like you.
Yeah. So that's what I mean when I say so there are some certain hacks that I've learned how to do, but still the idea of going to an environment where I don't know a lot of other folks, it just it creates a sense of dread. And I definitely also need time to recharge after those kinds of events where I'm really intensely social with people. And I think that's part of what ended up leading to burnout when I was a technical evangelist, because I started doing a lot of traveling to conferences. The traveling itself wore me out. At one point I was going to more than 2 events a month, and you know, I'd start to get sick and stuff because of just the stress of all the travel and everything. So I eventually kind of got out of that, took some time off, and then got to where my current gig is right now.
And what are you doing now?
And so I work for a company called Puppet.
Puppet.
And, Puppet makes IT kind of automation software. It does a whole bunch of things, but it's basically to manage configuration state of, you know, if you have many thousands of servers and things like that, you can use Puppet software to define the end state that you want things to be in, and Puppet basically will enforce it, and it works in a totally cross-platform way. So
that's
it's
cool.
Pretty important part of what's called the DevOps movement today. And Puppet is kind of a late stage startup. So it's been a fun place to work, and it's a pretty laid back work environment, and I can work from home, and I can travel a bit. So like I went to Vietnam and Taiwan in this last year, and got to work remotely for part of it and not have to burn up vacation time, you know,
Nice.
as long as I'm still, you know, doing things, and I thrive in that kind of environment.
I find that as an introvert, I've been trying to figure out the balance between what kind of external stimulation that I need to feel balanced. Like I like spending time in my head, like I'm there all the time. One of my tricks is to purposely get out of my head if I have to do something. But there was this time when I thought that I could be a digital nomad. Maybe you remember this when I was saying, and then planning to go back to Taiwan every year. Was my test to see if I had all the tools set up for a digital nomad lifestyle. And I discovered I didn't like it because it was too much. The travel was wearing out. I was being worn out just by not having good facilities, I suppose. Like my dad's apartment has like fluorescent lights that must be 25 years old. They're yellow and they flicker. The table is 2 inches too high to comfortably type on. You know, the internet used to suck. But you know, I do like going to different places and like what you're talking about, like, and just sort of working in a comfortable like cafe someplace, or in a nicely appointed office with some freedom to move around, with not the sense of social responsibility that goes with it. Like I'm kind of on my own, but I have things that I can do for an abstract sense of belonging, I suppose. So it's cool to hear that you've found your balance for that. You live in Portland. You can go where you want. You're still involved with open source stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah?
And Portland has just an incredible community of open source folks. So there's a large concentration of them there, and there's multiple companies that are doing things with open source too. And so it's a lot of fun. We have this website. It's called Calligator.org.
Yeah.
And it lists like user group events, and there's literally like 5 or 6 things going on every single night of the week that you can choose from. So sometimes it's you have a ton of things to do.
That's really cool.
If you want to.
Yeah. So every once in a while I wonder, like, if I were to leave Nashville, where would I go? And I haven't been able to figure that out yet. Probably because I haven't figured out what I'm doing, like, and who I am. And that's been a big... I think I've been writing about this challenge for probably over 15 years. It could be that I'm just never going to be comfortable with anything, but Portland has been a place that I've wanted to check out.
Yep.
I've been to Austin, Texas a few times, and that seemed like a cool area, except a lot of driving.
Yep.
Where else would there be? The Bay Area, I suppose. I have family in that area, so that would be kind of cool. And I guess I could get over my fear of earthquakes. Having lived in Taiwan, I should be able to deal with that, right? Yeah. So I can't think of any other places to go. Maybe the St. Paul Twin Cities area. For some reason, Minnesota keeps coming up in my searches, or I meet someone that's cool, and they're from Minnesota. So, and there's this idea of Minnesota nice, which I want to experience and see what that is all about.
Okay.
But I can't really think of anything. So let's see. We were talking about doing 10 questions with each other. I don't know if I can think of 10 questions.
Do you want to see if anybody in the chat room wanted to ask anything?
Let's see if anyone in the chat room has anything. If you can think of, oh man, it auto-awayed us out of the chat room. That sucks. That's annoying. All right, so we're back in the chat room. Oops. We're back in the audio chat. It auto-awayed me. Any questions for Scott or me? Feel free to ask, and we will do our best to answer them. So, all right. Looks like Jackie's in the chat room. Hey, Jackie. Oh, Flux has just popped back in. Let's see. Hear rustling noises. Oops, out of the chat room. Just setting some stuff over here so we can see. Hey, Jackie.
I don't have any questions. Just thought I'd wave hi.
Yeah,
Hey.
thanks.
Hey, Jackie, how you doing?
So, let's see. So I just put OBS on this side just so we can see it better, and we can see the chat room on this side. 5 questions? 4 questions? All right, we'll just go one question at a time.
An indeterminate number of questions.
An indeterminate number of questions. So, do you have a question for me?
Sure, I have a question about this. It was a ukulele or something up there.
Okay.
Do you know how to play that?
I do not.
Okay.
Does that answer the question? I can move this camera around here like this. It should be long enough. Yeah, or I could use the wireless camera, but I think I'm using about my wireless bandwidth at the moment and don't want to trigger some sort of catastrophic meltdown. So over here, is that showing up on the screen? Okay, see that MIDI keyboard there? Yep. Can you press the middle aux button? The yellow at the label, there's a middle button that says aux on it. And that will go to the aux auxiliary camera, and I can point at this. And so so you can stay seated, so you can still talk into the microphone, and I can roam a little. I would get another one of these things, but they cost like $500, so I don't have it. So I have one. Do you play the ukulele?
Oh no.
Oh, okay. So this is the object of interest. It needs tuning. I do not. I have all these musical instruments that I just have never learned how to play. Much of the way I have I have a 3D software package that I keep updating, and I never learned to use. I used to learn you do 3D stuff back in when I was in the game industry. So, but that was like many years ago, and I kept thinking I'm going to go back to this one day, and I'm going to learn how to model cool shit. But no, I used to upgrade Microsoft's Studio, a Visual Studio, every year too, but I never made anything with it. Such is my life, trying to get through these blocks for doing the complicated things. Yeah. Let me think of a question for you.
Oh, is there anything up there? New messages?
Let's see. Fluxus sort of wants to ask. Let's see. We can put this on the screen here. All right. Fluxus says, I sort of want to say hi, but I turned on the YouTube sound to get sound again. Also, it's synced to the video. But if it turned on mic, the YouTube sound, it's going to cause chaos. Yes! Well, we can try it out and see what happens. I guess the problem about being in the audio share room is there's like a 15-second delay with the video. Which, isn't that cool? It's giant. It's like being able to monitor the whole thing going on. Roger asks, Scott, can you tell us about the countryside and nature in Oregon?
Oh yeah. So I'm trying to remember. Is Roger from the Netherlands?
He's from the UK, and
okay.
He lives in the Netherlands.
Gotcha. All right, that's why I made that association. So yeah, the neat thing about the West Coast compared to the East Coast, where you lived and I grew up, is that the population on the East Coast is much more concentrated, and as you go further west, things are very sparse. And so Portland is a pretty big city, but it has this urban growth boundary around it that was created, and basically the development can't expand until a certain population density is achieved within it.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
And what that's done is it makes it so that you drive not too long, like I said, 15 or 20 minutes, and suddenly you're out in like farmland and really remote areas, and there's national forests and state parks and state forests around. And we've got this really beautiful area along the Columbia River. It's called the Columbia River Gorge. That, like I said, is maybe a half-hour drive away, and it has a lot of just amazing trails on it. We've got Mount Hood is also nearby, so that might be maybe a 40 or 45-minute drive. And if you're really into winter sports or skiing, and during the summertime, there's hiking and stuff up there. Really amazing stuff. I can also get up to Mount St. Helens in Washington. In about 2 hours or so, 2.5 hours. And the north side of Mount St. Helens, where the blast happened, back in the 80s, is just, I think, is the most beautiful place on earth that I've ever been. Wow. It is just so amazing, and it's highly protected. So, like, they have some trails there. You don't go off the trails, and it's just it's breathtakingly beautiful. And New Hampshire and New England has a lot of really beautiful areas, but it's a totally different landscape, and the scale of the mountains and everything else is so much bigger than what we have out here. And I love it. I love hiking. I love bicycling. I'll do rides out in those countryside areas and things like that frequently too. And it's just a huge quality of life for me to be able to have access to that. So that's what I got on the countryside in Oregon. And Oregon also, like, if you get outside of Portland, there's not a lot of population. And so, again, there are just these massive protected park areas. And we've got things like Crater Lake, which is like a 5-hour drive from Portland, but an amazing site to see there. It's a national monument and everything, too. So
it's like a lake in the top of the crater?
Yeah, it's a caldera that has, like, just this crystal clear blue water in it. And that was fun. I've ridden my bike around that too. That's cool, which is kind of cool.
How many hours a week would you say you're engaged in these kind of outdoor activities?
It can depend. When the weather's good, like better during the summertime and stuff, it might be what I do just about every weekend. When I climbed Mount St. Helens, and that required a significant amount of training. So like I started in January, just going out every single weekend doing more and more hikes to make sure I was prepared for that. I've scaled down a little bit on the long distance bicycling. I used to do like a 100-mile ride every summer and have to build myself up to train for that too. But I haven't done that now in the last few years. It's mostly been shorter rides.
How long does it take to ride 100 miles on a bike?
At my pace, it might take 8 or 9 hours with stops.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a long thing.
Yeah, and the hike up Mount St. Helens, is that when you were training for, like, is that like a multiple day hike up there? Or
No, you can do it in one day, but it's a long day and it's very steep and yeah.
Cool. I have no interest in hiking it off. I love hearing other people like talk about it. I'm not sure what it is. The one thing I liked about it, hiking, the couple of times I've gone up, they were very like just for kind of like casual day hikes, is I just like getting trail mix for it, and I would spend like all this time looking for which trail mix I want to have, and I would plan the increments. Okay, so we hike for 15 to 30 minutes, then we take a trail mix break, and I gotta eat this one, the chocolate one, or maybe I should save that for later when I need the energy. So maybe I'll go with the granola yogurt one.
That sounds like you, Dave.
Yeah, it's totally, it's an excuse to do that. So, and I'm getting exercise, so it cancels each other out. So that was exciting.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife, for the longest time, she liked hiking. She liked being out in nature. But if it involved a lot of climbing, if there wasn't a really good view to pay back the effort in the climbing, she was unhappy about that. And when we finally went through the training to go up Mount St. Helens, something finally changed in her in that, and she really kind of enjoys the climbing for the sake of it too, which is great.
That's great.
Yeah.
So it took a while to condition. Yeah. So a second question for Scott.
Okay.
In what ways has your wife conditioned you? Something that maybe you didn't enjoy doing before that you now enjoy doing, or at least have been opened your eyes to its positive qualities.
Well, so what's kind of interesting, yeah. So this is a good one. So like I said, my wife was a public school teacher in New Hampshire for about 8 years before we moved to Portland, and then she went off and kind of did the kind of semi-volunteer work. She did get paid for it, but the AmeriCorps watershed restoration work. And after that, she got involved in a what's called a democratic free school that we have in Oregon. Have you heard of this?
No.
The concept of free school. So it's they're generally a private school that is a completely non-coercive environment. So in that sense, there are no requirements. There are no tests that anybody has to take.
Interesting.
And the democratic aspect of it means that everyone involved in the school, including the students, votes on the school rules and the school policies.
Really?
And there's a dialogue and everything that goes on. And they have this really amazing process for conflict resolution called challenges.
Wow.
And the net effect of it is that these kids from a very early age, when something happens that they're unhappy with, or they feel like they're being treated unfairly, whether it's by an adult or another student, generally it's often between students, they challenge each other and they find a mediator, and then they have to talk out, why is it that I feel this way, or when you did this, I felt this way. And I feel like it really remarkably develops emotional intelligence in kids, and how to be assertive in appropriate ways, and how to set boundaries, and all sorts of soft skills that I think are, like, in a lot of ways more important than academic skills in life. And they come away from that with a lot of benefits too. I can hear cat purring through your
you
mic.
can? Well, people seem to like that. Vicky just said hi in the YouTube
Vicky.
chat, and she said cat. Yep, here he is.
So yeah, so it's called a democratic free school. It's a pretty progressive school style. I don't think it's for everyone. I think some people thrive in traditional academic environments, and that's fine. I'm going to try and suggest that otherwise. But for a lot of people, and especially for people who don't do well in the traditional public school environments, this is, a godsend for them to be able to find other ways of being and developing as people in these schools. And you can be just as academic in them as you want. So, for example, my wife will teach a class on, cooking with fractions, and, have kids do recipes and stuff that involve, like, measuring cups and things like that, or a chemistry class or a biology class. But it's directed by the students and not by the staff. And anyone is free to participate or not as they see fit. So the idea relies a lot on the concept that children will find their own motivation in things. And in a lot of ways, I think it also preserves motivation to be something that's intrinsically created, as opposed to being externally applied, which, as I think you're aware, can kind of destroy people's creativity in a lot of ways in their lives.
And so this is something that your your wife's participation opened your eyes to this possibility?
Exactly.
Or have you learned from it personally too?
Oh yeah. Like I think so. The fact that she does this challenge process, and again, people have to communicate with each other. I think that's had benefits in our relationship as well. You know, because we don't actually explicitly say I challenge you because you know.
Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah.
But there's a concept of one of the school rules is when you're playing with someone and they say stop, you really have to stop if they say stop seriously.
Oh, okay.
And so occasionally there'll be something that goes on and somebody will say stop seriously, and then you know that that's actually someone setting a boundary.
So literally saying seriously at the end of it.
Yep.
Not interpreting like that sounded serious or not.
No. It's literally say stop seriously.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the that explicit signaling. Let's see. Fluxus likes hiking.
Right on.
Thumbs up. Strudel's here.
Hey,
Strudel. But Strudel, she briefly popped into the audio shared sounds, but I guess the delay between the video and the audio is disconcerting enough that people don't like doing it.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Maybe in 10 years we'll have instant broadcasting, because this streaming thing seems to be taking off like all over the place. People just sharing random stuff. Right, Kitty? So, one thing we were talking about doing, as I said that, Scott, you have free reign over pointing at anything in this space or downstairs and ask me, what the hell is this thing? Or what's in this box? Or what is this for? Why is this even here? So, would you like to try that out?
I feel like I want to ask something smoker related.
Oh, sure.
What is something that you haven't smoked yet that you're interested in trying out?
I'm very much at the beginning of the smoking journey. So we're talking about smoking meat,
Yep.
I think, right?
Right.
So actually the smoker's right here in the living room. Let's see, can you hit the aux cam view? Yep. There's like one at the top called that says live or full aux, one of the gray keys. Yep, you might have pressed it harder. So this is the smoker. Over here.
Oh man, that's smaller than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, isn't it? It's bring it over here. So like what I was looking for was something that would be portable. Let's see if it's showing up over there. Because I live in a condo, we're not allowed to have gas grills on the porch. For years, I got away with it because they weren't enforcing it, but then they changed the master insurance policies, and then there was a big crackdown on it. So I can have electric grills, but electric grills suck, right? So I got this thing, and there's cheaper ones. I think this one costs $300, but I would like the all stainless steel construction that had these casters on it, and it was like this squat form factor. It's light enough for me to pick up by these handles and bring. And move around, because that was important for having the setup. So the things I can smoke are things that can fit in that. It's fairly capacious. Is that a word? Capricious? Capacitous? It's big enough to do things like a rack of ribs if I cut the rack in half.
Okay.
And there's like 3 shells in there. So I can fit 4 shells in there, so I could do that. So ribs, I've just figured out how to finally do them right in using this particular smoker. I have not made brisket. That would be the thing that I work up to. Brisket is expensive, so I'm practicing on cheap stuff like smart. Pork butts. And if I see a pork butt on sale for like under, let's say $1.49 a pound, I'll say, okay, I can experiment with this. On the other hand, I'm trying to lose weight, so
just go keto and you'll be fine with that, right?
Yeah, I suppose. I'm not very good at keeping it. Like right after my dad was visiting back in November last year, and so I was on this. I'd started this sort of keto-ish diet, but I've been off it since he's been visiting. Yeah, because I haven't been very good.
Really a lot like something that I would construct at myself.
What's that? What kind of thing to construct?
I said the thing that you just showed, the smoker, looked very much like something I would construct.
Oh, really? You know how to work with metal?
Not metal per se, but I like fire. I like fireplaces. I like smoking devices.
Oh, yeah.
Just a continuous problem when you're living in an apartment.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
I popped in partly to say that and partly to challenge myself and your statement about this. This will only happen in 10 years or something.
Awesome. Well, thanks for asking for talking on the channel. I really appreciate it. Now you're immortalized in the video.
Yeah, it's a horrible feeling.
It is, isn't it? Just, but what I do is I take solace knowing that no one is going to watch this, and no one really knows who I am.
Eternal life is mine.
Well, I know when I finally run for office, someday somebody's going to dig up this video and they'll be digging up dirt on me for it, right?
Right. So, he likes brisket.
Yeah. What about chicken? Have you smoked chicken at this point?
No, because this smoker only goes to 250 degrees, and when I make chicken, I like a nice crisp skin on it. Yeah. And you need at least 320 degrees, I think, for that.
Same thing with like duck or something, or.
Yeah, so with the most smoked things, you're not getting a nice crackling on the outside. Mm-hmm. You're just kind of cooking it really slowly, so you get a nice and moist, pull apart mouthfeel.
Yep.
With duck, I would need something that's more power. They actually have a bigger version of this that I've been thinking about that will go up to a temperature where you start getting crisping on the skin. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure. I figured I would see how much I like this. I wasn't really sure. I figured I could also sell it because it's a nice unit.
Yep.
If it didn't work out, but I like it enough that I'm probably going to hold on to it. I do wish it had more juice in it though, so I could do things like crispy skin on, or at least if I roast a chicken in it, it would actually be, have some crispness to it. If I put, I think I did try doing chicken thighs with the skin on it, and they came out. The skin turns rubbery. It doesn't. It's not pleasant at all. You end up taking it off. Some things that I can't do with that either are smoked cheese. That would be fun to try, but you need a cold smoker for that, where the smoke chamber is outside of it. It's just blowing it in. I think it's really best flavoring it. I suppose I could do a hybrid approach though with the chicken. One thing that you do with this is, it turns out that when you're using the smoker, you probably already know this, is that it's only like the first hour or two where the smoke actually has an impact on the flavor. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it's really just low and slow. So I could actually use it to infuse a nice smoky flavor to a duck then, and then maybe finish it in the oven. Okay. That might be something to do. I don't usually cook duck because there's all the stuff that you had to do with the duck fat draining, and you had to collect it, and it makes a terrible smell and burns up and smells up the house. So if I were to make something, maybe Flux would be into this too. I wish I had an outdoor tandoor or an oven or something out there that I could fill it up with charcoal and like either make naan in it, or something that requires a lot of heat, or a big clay earthen oven, or something giant that you could like bake bread in. Yeah, something like that. But I would then need to own a property, I think, like that. Yeah. If I had a property, I would have outside would be a museum of outdoor ovens from around the world. So there would be the ones that they have in Africa, the ones they have in India. There would be the Chinese barrel roaster ones. There would be a big brick wood oven type thing. I'm fascinated by kind of like maybe like Fluxus. I'm fascinated by ways of controlling temperature to get the quantity. So I have so much junk that measures temperature and and plots it and stuff. But cooking is primarily because of cooking.
Yep, gotcha.
Yeah. So would you like to point at something, or should I have another question for you? It's kind of like conversational Christmas.
Oh, whatever happened to, you had a teletype machine or something like that was over here at one point when you had a table. Is that moved downstairs?
That's been moved downstairs. Okay. We could go down there and see what's up with that. Let's see. Well, I'll have to do the talking for both of us. So there's an application I have here called NDI. Do you remember a company called NewTek?
NewTek, no.
They used to be popular. They were known in the 90s for making video production gear for the Amiga. And they're still around. And NDI is essentially video over internet. And it's like a relatively new standard, so that you find people designing, making software to connect various sources, and so it all streams over high-speed internet. So you don't have these issues with cabling. You get a variety of sources, and they're useful for doing like this kind of live video production type stuff. So I have an NDI monitor on this, and I can actually launch this app here. I'll show people what I'm doing. So where is it? NDI, this is actually a third-party tool. And if I am on the right network, this should show up eventually. Oh, I had probably hit that. So now this is recording. I think I have enough bandwidth in here to do this. And that should eventually show up. Unless I am not on the right network, which would be terrible. No. I'm claiming this is going to actually be cool, but it's completely failing. Oh, I know why. It's because I don't think I have Wi-Fi turned on this. Yeah. I get irritated by it asking me, "Are you on?" By asking me to connect all these stupid networks all the time. Let's see. This is 5N. Okay, let me turn off cellular for now. Okay, now this is showing up. So we should see something.
Hey.
Okay. Yeah, so now I'm going to switch to NDI. So now, this is low res, but people can see where we're going. So let us take a field trip. We are going to go visit the teletype into the bowels of the living room cafe, where no one goes because it's horrifying. So it is kind of dark, but it should auto-adjust, I'm thinking. So the teletype's back here. This used to be my office, but it's been kind of this holding area for junk for a while. This stuff I just need to get rid of. Yeah, so it's over here. I'll get out of the way so you can see what's going on there. And is it showing up at all?
It's really dark.
That's weird. It's not, it's that dark in here. It's like there's an auto adjustment thing that's not working. Automatic gain control is not working. It's weird. This is a newer version of it. Well, maybe this isn't going to work. I'll have to debug that later. Hit stop it. I don't know what's going on. Oh well, I guess this isn't going to work. I will just take a picture of it. So what's going on with that, you ask?
Yeah, just if you had any more plans with that.
I'm thinking of taking the case off it. When I picked it up, I thought that it would, the case, I didn't know anything about that, what the housing should look like. And, okay, we're back. I think we're back on. So apparently the housing is not complete. So the housing, oh, now we're echoing because of this. Why is this not working? Sorry, peoples. My thumb never registers on this. So I can see the advantages of having a producer for these things now, because if someone can like be fiddling with all this sort of stuff as you're moving around. So sorry about. So we're trying to look at the this thing is still going. Nothing's working today. Looking at the teletype, I just took a picture of it that I'm going to try to show on here. But yeah, I suddenly am seeing the need for a production assistant. So because they would be like furiously working on the getting this picture up here, which
Is there on our episode of Ghost Hunters?
yeah. So that's the teletype that we're talking about. You may have seen it in the past. And I'm kind of regretting having it now because it's this heavy, giant thing. Mm-hmm. But I've seen some cool builds in which they take the housing off of it and they turn into a steampunk thing. Mm-hmm. So like it could either put it just mount on a board and just have the entire mechanism exposed. And so then the cracked housings and the missing buttons and stuff like that wouldn't be so much of an issue. To repurpose it into something that's cool. And
do you guys have maker fairs here in Nashville?
we do. There is a maker space now on Crown Street. Haven't been there in maybe 3 years, actually, now I think about it. They moved there 3 years ago, I think. So there's people who know how to deal with this stuff.
I was just thinking at the maker fairs I know of too. There's a huge steampunk kind of element there.
Yeah, there was a steampunk. They had this last steampunk festival there that I was at, so I went and checked it out. It would be neat to get into the steampunk stuff, but it seems like quite an investment of effort. And I'm not sure if I would tie into the lore as quite as well. This is something I've been finding out. Like, I'm drawn to some of these lore type things, but then I find it too much of a. Well, it's kind of like we were talking about. Like, I like to know what I'm supposed to do when I go to something like this. I want to know, well, what are the steampunk etiquette things? What are the common touch points that people have and know about? Like, this goes back to me being awkward in physical education class in school. When in PE in elementary school, like when we were playing soccer, I was always offside, and I never knew why. So it's like, you're offside. And it says, what's that mean? So you're offside. I don't know what that means. You're stupid. You're offside. And so like I would just feel bad because people were yelling at me, you're offside. You cost us a point. Or now we have a penalty. Yeah. And so like it's kind of reaction that I automatically have, and I have to intellectually overcome. So I forgot what I was talking about. I was just shocked by. I guess I'm having what's it called, post-traumatic stress from remembering being offside when I was like 11. I was a sensitive kid.
Yeah, as many of us were, I think. Yep.
Oh, question for you: Can you recall an incident from your childhood? That's similar to the one I just shared with you?
Yeah, I do kind of remember one. So this must have been, let's see, I was in the 5th grade, and my parents definitely instilled all sorts of rules of politeness and things into me. So I wasn't like an uncouth kid or something like that. But I remember I needed to go to the bathroom, and so I walked up to my teacher, who was talking with another teacher about how her son had chicken pox or something like that, and was going through chicken pox, and she mentioned something about how, he had all the bumps or everything on his back, and maybe I made some sort of face like, kind of thing. And as she's going and talking, and she's most basically ignoring me, but then suddenly she turns to me and says, "You don't listen in on other people's conversations." And just kind of in this really kind of like shameful way is like, and then she says, "Well, what do you want?" And I think I even said like nothing, and kind of walked back to my desk and having to go to the bathroom, and just kind of sat there. But it certainly made an impression on me, and I'm sure it was just something that someone was frustrated and kind of just let it out in the moment without realizing that it was going to have an impact on someone. Yeah,
those kind of things are surprising, aren't they? Like this whole offside thing, I realized this is one reason why I suspect this is the reason why I don't play online multiplayer games, like with random people, like your Call of Duties, your Gears of War, your competitive first-person shooters, because it reminds me so much of PE, and like not knowing the rules or I don't want to screw up on the team, and I don't want my team to be offside because I'm offside, and so like in these games, like the people know where to go. Like MMORPGs, when you go into like, get the big raids and things like that, or even like the smaller adventures, everyone has this list of rules you do. Okay, so you're the backup healer, you're the primary tank, and there's these things that you follow, and then you need to know the layout of what exactly is supposed to happen next. So you get to this boss, this encounter, these small dragons that come out. You've seen the Leroy Jenkins like video, like in which like that there was a popular video when this guy playing World of Warcraft is away from keyboard getting chicken, and the raid leader is describing everything that everyone's going to do. He gets back and says, "All right, let's do this," and he just runs into the thing, and it aggroes everybody, and then the whole intricate plan goes to crap. And then it was like, "Damn it, Leroy, what the?" He is not quite he's not really repentant about it. But like that would be horrifying to me.
Right.
And I remember doing this once when I was playing World of Warcraft back when it was like really new. And I went into one of these dungeons with this group of people for the first time, not realizing it was a dungeon that had these stages and stuff. So I was the healer for this sort of small group. And we were doing pretty well to the end. And like I blew something, and then like then everyone died. And I was wondering why no one was talking to me afterwards. And then later on, I realized, oh, that wasn't actually an encounter. And these people had queued up for it for hours, and they were happy to have a healer. And then I kind of just didn't know what was going on, and then they were all like angry, and so they all just sort of silently disbanded and didn't say anything to me, even though I was asking them, so what happened? What was supposed to go on? And so this is a feeling I don't like.
Yeah.
And so like I tend to shy away from that kind of stuff.
Well, I think video games should be fun, not like a stressful, like high expectations, high stakes environment, I guess.
Yeah, I guess for me I tend to play PvE, player versus environment, rather than I always avoid the player versus player stuff, because it just seems uncomfortable. And people can be dicks, about
How about just like one-on-one matches kind of thing?
I don't even like that.
Comfortable with that? No?
I don't even like that. I'm trying to think if there's an example of a one-on-one thing that I've done. No, I prefer like the team cooperative type stuff.
Yeah.
Team cooperative versus environment versus team. I don't know. It could be an anxiety that maybe I should overcome. And I've been trying to do it with the online gaming because, like, my friend Dom from grad school, likes playing these online games. It's been fun to reconnect with him, and he is so super chill about it. Like, I remember him being super chill, and he goes and plays these things that just roll. All the people swearing at him or whatever, he just rolls off his back, say, "Hey, it's all good." I cannot do that.
Well, it's funny. I was just hanging out with some friends, and some people get really competitive about board games.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's like, and you don't really know that about their personality until they actually get into the game, kind of thing. And it's just kind of takes away the fun, I think, when someone's hyper competitive and other people are not.
Yeah. I don't like board games for that reason. I don't like playing board games. I don't like playing card games. It makes me a real joy to be around at social gatherings. So that's where I like to have some sort of role that I can play. Kind of similar to your trick about like, for what I would do is I would adopt a role, and then if I'm inhabiting the role, then I'm not thinking about myself. I'm thinking about other people and being a conduit for them being able to relate to something. I guess I started to do that with the co-working. So I see my role in the co-working chat room as saying hi to people, and I used to do this for AOL back in the late '80s. So back when there was one chat room in on AOL, back when AOL was the thing, I was in the PC graphics, I was in the Apple II graphics forum as a forum consultant, which meant that I got 20 hours of time to use my modem connected. Otherwise, it was like $6.99 an hour or something like that. And then, so essentially, we'd be in the chat room. People would come in, try and check in the instances, and I would say, "Welcome to the Apple II graphics chat." Like, and then some little blurb. And every once in a while, just throw out a question just to keep people engaged, but allow people to feel safe, that it's okay. And if someone had a question, like I could say, I would acknowledge that we heard the question, and maybe I didn't know the answer, but I would maybe suggest some place to look, and then maybe someone would pipe in after that. And it was like the very minimum amount of hosting. Being a host, I think, is a lost skill these days. So people will put together a party or a user group thing, and they just kind of expect people to sort of mill around and talk. So like, by adopting, if I can put myself in the host role, or if I happen to know enough people to bring disparate groups together, that's something that I think is, that for some reason that makes me less anxious if I can find some way to gain entry to that state of mind.
Yeah, because it kind of puts your focus on something that a system or something that you can understand or be a part of, rather than this whole open-ended thing and ad-libbing and improving and thing that goes on. I think for me, preparation is always key. Especially with those talks and things like that. I do. It's like, if I felt like I was prepared for the talk, I could manage with the rest of it.
Oh,
and the most tense part, of course, is when you're done with the talk and there's a Q&A session afterwards, because you can't control that. And there were a lot of people. Let's just say Intel may not be the most popular company to be promoting things, and there were a lot of contrarian kind of attitudes towards it, and so I occasionally dealt with that, and that was another stressor that I didn't like about being a technical evangelist. So
dealing with naysayers,
yeah, like people who just like to be, as they call it, trolling. You know?
Yeah, I can't abide that. Yeah. There's a certain point in which this is where the ugly side of my personality comes out. All right, it's time to take some heads. You know, like you're threatening the chill vibe that I want to create, and you are deliberately trolling. You know, you're being an asshole, and then those moments I can rise up. But if I have to be sure that person is just not, you know, confused, or you know, they don't really mean it maliciously. If they're directly trying to manipulate the environment for their own enjoyment by being negative, then I will come after it. I will get them.
Yep.
Otherwise, I just feel sad about it. So a question is popping up in my mind as you were talking. Damn it, I lost it. It was related to, what did we just talk about? I have a terrible memory for.
We're talking about games and people being competitive, and
yeah, there was something related to when you were a technical evangelist. You're talking about people who are trolling,
or doing Q&A sessions.
Q&A sessions. The preparation aspect of things.
Right.
So when you, I have been thinking that I should step up my game and create more prepared content. And so if I look back at the history of what I've been doing on the blog, I tend to write blog posts as first drafts, and I very rarely go back and clean them up. And so you can tell, all the typos, and they're long and rambling sometimes. Yeah. Every once in a while, I will go back and okay, this wasn't clear, and I will clean it up because I'll be obsessed about it. But I'm generally not making content that's designed for very easy consumption, or that's authoritative in the way that it's broken everything down. To some extent, I can do it on the fly, but I know it could be better. Likewise with these live stream things, or making videos and stuff like that. No, Strudel waved hi in the chat room. So I was wondering, so when you're creating a talk, for when you do that kind of thing, what was involved with it? How long does it take? That's kind of always a fascination with me. How long does it take? How much effort is there really involved with something like that?
Well, it depends on what it is. So as a technical evangelist, I'm generally trying to educate people about the technology, and often in an entertaining way, so to get people engaged. So if I can demo cool things with it, that's an important part of it. So there was this, it was an embedded system board that I was using, and one of the demos that I came up with it for was a robotic arm that used a webcam with computer vision, and it could go, and it was the board was called the minnow board, like the minnow fish. And so I had these little foam fish pieces, and I called it the minnow board fish picker upper, and it could go and it could identify, it would work within a range. It could identify where the fish was, pick it up, and then put it into a little dish that was made to look like a little pool of water kind of thing, with blue waves and stuff in it. You know, silly stuff like that, or talking about other examples of what people have done with things that seem fun and engaging. And then other times it's just about teaching things. And I think the most important thing when you're teaching someone, when it comes to technology and things like that, is to try to keep that beginner's mind and understand what are the concepts that you need to explain that people might not get. And if anything, I probably would always err on the side of assuming less of my audience rather than more. And so my work and my tutorials and things like that tended to be really good for the getting beginners up to speed with things. And one of the things I had created that involved a lot of preparation too was a recorded screencast that I did on how to make use of the Yocto project. And that one took a lot of effort because it was, a screen thing going, and I didn't want to have typos as I was typing things.
Right.
So there was some editing after the fact, and I had a whole script and everything I was reading through and making sure that I was being articulate with that too, because a lot of folks that we wanted to adopt this were not necessarily native English speakers either. A lot of factors and things like that come into play. But I found as my time as a technical evangelist went on is, I get pretty nervous about giving a talk, and then I prepare for it, and that would help to reduce my nervousness. There was a point when I was doing this enough that I felt like I could not have to practice a talk over and over and over again before I gave it, and I could just kind of wing it, and it would kind of work. And that was advantageous to the amount of time that I had to put into things to prepare for them as well.
How long was a talk typically?
Usually between 40 and 60 minutes.
Yeah. How many hours would it take to get to that 40 to 60 minutes?
Oh, geez, it's hard to say. Probably a good solid week of work, 40 or 50 hours, I'd
40,
say.
50 hours, yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. Like I remember, have you heard of the show, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Netflix? No, it's about stand-up comics in around the 60s. And like there's this woman who discovers like that she has this talent for it. But an interesting thing about it is they talk about having the that tight 10 minutes and how it takes years for some comics to get to getting those 10 minutes.
Yep.
And I've been very much aware of the asymmetric nature of creation versus consumption. So if we spend like 2 hours watching the last Star Wars movie, how many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of hours went into the effort of making that final polished piece? Like even a piece of software, how long was it? So like that's something I try to remind myself of, that it takes a long time to get like a small bit of perfection. A lot of non-creatives don't understand this, and they understand the experience as I press a button and someone serves me. So as I'm considering like, I need to make more polished content. It's helpful to hear from people who've actually made these kind of things to say, okay, yeah, it is going to take a long time, and it's not like doesn't come naturally or easily. You know, not that that's what you said, but you know, I'm feeling that there was certainly challenges to face in it.
It depends on the type of content you want to create too. And I thought it was interesting. You had done a What's Up Dave stream, and I think somebody might have asked in the chat room about what do you mean when you were talking about a certain type of color, and you actually went in and opened up After Effects or whatever it was and started to show. It was
it was Courtney was asking why do they mean by sweetening a color?
Sweetening a color, exactly. That was it. Yeah. And I thought that was kind of interesting because I'm somebody who is dabbling a little bit in web development and things like that, and I have really no design skills and no sense of aesthetics when it comes to matching colors and things like that too. So I have to I find those kinds of things interesting, and you certainly have a background in that, so that could be an example of something you could produce more polished content around if you wanted to.
If I wanted to. Yeah, I actually like the question and answer format. I think it's fun to be able to bust that stuff out. I think I'm more attracted to that than the idea of creating finished content. So I see the reason why I want to do more finished content in the first place is really to increase the accessibility of what I'm talking about. And so maybe what I'm thinking about is there an educational aspect to what I'm doing. And there's also in the back of my head, if I had more polished content, that might bring in more people to see what it is that I'm doing, whatever the hell that is. So I haven't been pushing too hard on it because I'm still not sure what it is that I'm doing. It could be just something as easy as like I'm just trying to invite creative people into a comfortable space, which is something that never occurred to me until like this chat room just sort of became what it is now. I mean, look, there's like we have 10 people who know each other that didn't know each other a year ago.
Exactly,
which is amazing.
And I think your style of bringing people in like this has just been really unique when it comes to it, because like I said, I think it started with your blog, and I think the way you've written, being very extremely introspective about things, created an audience of people who could relate to that, and then finally giving them a forum through the Discord channels and stuff to be able to participate and meet other people who relate to that, I think has been something that people wouldn't be able to find probably in other ways necessarily. So thank you for this, Dave. Let me now that I'm seeing in person, thank you for the Discord
Thanks, Scott,
community.
for being part of our community too, and everyone who might be watching this or is in the room right now. And let's see if anyone asks questions. Fluxus says +1 for big baked clay oven. Yeah. I wonder if we know anyone who has a big clay oven. And Jackie said, "Who turned out the lights because of our failed NDI experiment?" Did get the wished for spelunking into darkness, though. Yep. We aim to please ghost hunters at the DS Cafe. Are you scared of ghosts?
Of ghosts?
Ghosts.
Not ghosts, but goats scare the hell out of me.
Really?
No.
Oh, what's that? We might be treated to some live punning from you. Are you holding it in right now?
Doing my best.
Doing your best. And Strudel says, Jackie says, I used to use one of those way back machine. What you talking about there? The
a teletype maybe?
Clay oven? Oh, one of the teletype. Right, yeah. Strudel, it's the first day of school there in New Zealand. Lots of chipper parents walking past with far from chipper kids. A depressing picture. Although amusing to hear about. So that's it so far. I think people are just like kind of chilling out with us. No deep burning questions for ZenLinux. Oh, so where does the name ZenLinux come from?
Oh, ZenLinux. So, well, I've always been passionate about Linux. Even like I think I mentioned earlier, like as my career path, I really wanted to work with Linux and open source. And you know, I don't know if it would be correct to say that I am a practicing Buddhist, but I certainly have been influenced by a lot of Buddhism and Zen in particular. And at one point, so there was a long time ago, there was a Linux distribution called ZenLinux, and they had the domain ZenLinux.com, and that distribution fizzled out, and the domain name became available, and I thought, hey, that's maybe a cool screen name to use, and I ended up snagging ZenLinux.com, and
can I pull it up?
Ended up, yeah, if you want, it'll just go to my blog.
ZenLinux.com?
Yep.
Sweet. So we're looking at here.
Yep. And I don't post blog posts very often, but...
well, we have everything about Scott Garman.
Yep.
What's hacker? Is this like a convenience
That's
link
just,
for yourself?
yeah, exactly.
Do you use this as
one
your
of the things
homepage?
I'm interested in. No, not really.
Your GitHub page.
Yep.
I've never looked at your GitHub page.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of stuff. So Puppet uses GitHub quite a bit. We have a lot of private repos, but a lot of public ones too. So you'll see my main participation is into that.
Cool.
I do a lot of stuff with
Floaty.
build tools and like continuous integration, infrastructure automation tools, and things like that.
That's something that I've been trying to get a handle on, like continuous integration, unit tests, design-driven or test-driven design. So I've been working with my cousin on doing this various like educational software programming things. So we're cobbling together things out of using Node for the first time.
Yep.
JavaScript on the client and the back end to do using graphics libraries like 3JS to do visualization and do some system communication stuff back and forth. So we started this like 3 years ago. And I'm not that familiar. I wasn't familiar with any of this stuff before. Like my previous programming background is not bad, but it's not very deep. So the kind of things that I know are assembly language for 602 and BASIC and some C# now from a past project, ActionScript.
And it sounds like you've got enough of a base that you can, learn things on the fly, and you're kind of a generalist. I consider myself a generalist as well.
Yeah, but things like build tools and testing methodologies, like if I search on the internet looking for stuff, the kind of things that come up tend to be, I think, more in the context of a larger software organization, or they're really, really useless tutorials about here, follow these steps to install this thing, and half of it's about installing it, and then run this example. There, you're done. It seems like content clickbait. Yeah. There's not a lot of kind of middle level or like even introducing concepts and philosophy like this. This is a general problem I have with educational material if I don't have some of the context of the history and the philosophy behind why we do it this way. If I don't get that, I'm not interested at all, or I lose interest or lose my attention very quickly. So I might have some questions for you, like philosophical ones, later on. So it would be interesting to know, how does one think about approaching unit testing? And there may be some specifics would be I'm not sure if you could answer these, but like in a graphical user interface with a system backend, is it not applicable to the entire thing, or are there certain maybe just low hanging fruit type things to test? Even how some of the stuff is how do you set it up, or why use this particular one? I'm also very annoyed when tools are awkward to deploy. You need to run it through sed or grep and then pipe the output into this thing. Those kind of things just irritate me on a general level, because I like things to be self-contained and clean, which is maybe not the right mindset to have to be like a kind of like in the trenches developer. And I should be fine with that, but I'm not. This is me like measuring my sense of competence again. You know, another child thing that I had was not feeling that I was competent or good at anything or smart, because people were telling me I wasn't. And then at a certain point I realized that they probably were measuring me by a different standard. They were measuring me by the standard to pay attention to their stupid rules and then follow them without complaining about it or asking too many questions. Like my mom, when she was trying to teach me piano.
Especially that question, why, right?
Yeah, I would always ask why. Like, so my mom's like trying to teach me piano lessons and I'm going through it. Like at a certain point, she's like, Mom, why are some of the keys white and some of them black? Why aren't they all the same color? Why are they arranged like this? And my mom said, that's the way they are, shut up. Well, that's kind of, she didn't say shut up, but she says, it doesn't matter, just follow the notes and everything will be fine. But it just bothered me. And then there would be times when I'd be playing something and then I found that I liked it better if I pressed this key instead of this key at a certain part, and that would be wrong. And then my mom would complain about it, and I said, but this one sounds better if I do it this way. And she said, no, it's like this on the thing. And so shortly after that, I just lost all enthusiasm for music lessons and stuff like that. But now I'm trying to re-engage with it from, I guess, my own perspective. So I know that I need a certain amount of explanation, or let's have that curiosity.
You need to be able to follow your curiosity about something.
Yeah.
It's unsatisfying to just say, "Oh, this is just the way things done." That's an unsatisfying answer. Yeah.
So like I like the educational material that I find the best is ones that have a little bit of principle, a little bit of application, some context about it, and it's not just saying this is the way it is. You have to follow it.
Right.
In engineering school, like the day I graduated from it, with having middling grades, I would say. I realized that the secret of engineering. Have I told this before? Told you this? I realized what the secrets of engineering were, and if I'd had that going into it, I would have done much better. The secrets of engineering for me were everything. This is electrical engineering. Everything is a signal, and by that I mean like everything can be turned into a signal.
Yep.
The second one is every signal is arbitrary. I mean that the reason why this signal and the measurements and stuff exist is because the guy who did it first, generally it being a guy then, happened to use chickens as his measurement unit, and now chickens are baked into all the mathematics. There's no reason for it. There's no Platonic ideal for this. Yep. It is because they literally only had chickens, and so now everything is measured in fractions of chickons. And like then the last one,
and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Why is it negative 1.6 times 10 to negative 20, whatever it is now? And like lacking the context for like what it was that they were trying to solve or how they went and did it. Even if it would be expressed in a way, if it was expressed at all, as like this is the historical context, but by someone who clearly didn't care about the engineering challenge of it. Yep. It was more like a fact that some tech writer stuck in there because it's color commentary, but there was no real motivation to work it into a good presentation, I would say, for myself. And then the last one was like every system is arbitrary. Why use chickens? Well, this is the way that people figured it out, and now we're all using it because we don't have to think about it anymore. And so if I'd known that going into it, then maybe I would have looked at that math and not imagined. I don't understand how this math, which I saw as a Platonic ideal of like how things were supposed to be. I didn't know where that came from. I thought I would not have questioned them as much. Oh, some guy just thought about this, and this is the way it worked out.
Yeah.
So. And I still had to remember this every once in a while when I'm dealing with like development documentation. But then I get angry about like people who are not explaining this, or I don't know. I just get very irritated. There's no reason for it.
Well, I always like in documentation, I know I found something that really works for me when they have those, usually especially asides and things, and they kind of develop epiphanies in me. They give me some sort of context or some sort of why reason. I'd be like, oh, okay, that's really helpful. And if I'm reading a document and I have those little epiphanies on a regular basis, I know it's like, wow, this is really good solid documentation, what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Do you have to write documentation?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Yep. I wouldn't say I'm especially good at it unless I can be really focused on it. It's not something you can kind of multitask on.
What are the kind of things that distract you?
Well, certainly. So I work in an environment, and you said you've used Slack before. So we use HipChat at work quite a bit, and then there's IRC. If I've got chat windows open, and a lot of times people will ask questions or need help with something, sometimes it's code reviews for pull requests and things they've got up, and it's really helpful to be able to offer them that help in real time. And so I find myself constantly context switching back and forth to the chat to see if there's something I should try to help out with. And if I'm working, say, on a weekend, which I don't like to have to do, but sometimes when I do it, I'm just so much more settled and relaxed because I don't have to focus on any of that. That's just out of the picture completely. And certainly it feels like I'm like 10x more productive when, that's the case there. It's just the whole interrupt-driven stuff that comes up. And unfortunately, the work that I've done, too, tends to be... I'm seen as the owner of a number of things. And so if something goes wrong with this particular platform, people come to me even if it's not necessarily something that I have played a role in. So I have to kind of sort that out and,
They say you're just a generally helpful source, so they return
I think part of it is that too, is I have been really responsive and things like that. And, if I ignored people more often, it wouldn't be such an issue, but,
Do you have an open office space?
Yes, and I work from home as much as I can. I usually go in the office a couple days a week, again, because of that.
There was a time when I was working at a game company that we had founded, and I discovered biphasic sleep then. And what I did was, I would do the real work that I had to do, like anything that required focus. I would do that between midnight and 5 a.m. I would sleep for 4 hours, and I would go into work, and I knew when I was going into the workplace, it was only just for answering questions and interacting with people. And then I would go home and sleep again.
That's actually kind of a good way to break it up and get a bit of balance with both. And I think that's what I try to do with the working from home thing, because I can control my environment a little bit more there than I can in the office. But then I still need the face time, with my coworkers and things like that too. I find if I were to be working totally remotely, kind of like what you're doing, I tend to get paranoid. Like, am I working hard enough? What do people think of what I'm doing? But if I can have lunch with them on a weekly basis or something like that and laugh with them and see that, we've got a decent relationship and stuff, that allays those concerns.
Yeah, I found that I need a certain amount of face-to-face or just even speaking time. It could be through Skype or something like that for me to feel that I'm involved or even want to care about the project that I'm on. And so I'm actively trying to put that into my workday. That's where it's been difficult working my own personal project because I'm only working with myself on them. And I'm sick of talking to myself. I do it all the time. And sometimes I think that's maybe why that I find it helpful for me just to turn off my verbal centers. Because then I'm not having the conversation with myself because I'm tired of listening to myself. And it's been a problem in the past few years, just trying to get moving on some of these projects that I think will pay off in some way, in terms of I'm thinking a lot more about how am I going to take care of myself in my golden years, right? Where is my money going to come from? What if I lose my eyesight? What if I'm sick for 6 months? I'm getting to the age where it's increasingly a possibility. And so I don't have a whole lot saved, not enough to live in style, I would say. But I know I have these I've fallen into these areas where there are potential sources of revenue, the design work that I do with the productivity tools. Oh, I should give you some of those as souvenirs to remind me to do that.
Oh, great, because I do use those for them sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you a stack of... Well, I don't want you to make your check-in luggage too heavy, but we'll go into the stock room, and you can pick from the stock room itself. It'll be
this is one of the benefits of coming to the Living Room Cafe, right?
Yeah. Oh, Kiddily, who's Vicky, says, goats are cute, ghosts are jerks. That's really true.
Yeah.
Are all ghosts
what about ghost goats?
Ghost goats? I don't know. That's a gray area.
Or goat ghosts?
Goat ghosts? Try to pick. Is a goat ghost the same as a ghost goat?
Or I don't know. Maybe it's just a bad topic to bring up.
Oh, God. There you're... Now it's starting. All right. So, and then Kiddily says, normativity is dangerous. It causes abuse. It also helps normative people get away with abusive behaviors. And then a clarification, ghosts are ghosts.
All right.
Definitively said. That's interesting. The normativity is dangerous. Can you expand on that if you get a chance? That's a really interesting, I find that an interesting comment. It causes abuse. Like the people who are defending normativity, telling people that they're not normative and therefore they're somehow flawed? Is that the idea of that? Then over in the regular chat room, we see commenting about the teletyper. Flux says, kids, oh no, new people, etc. I was thinking, no, kids, new holidays are over, holidays are over. Okay. They are amusing themselves, which is wonderful. It really makes me happy when people just come in here and they just talk to each other. I feel like it's I've made a nice space for people to just chill and be themselves. So that's cool. Now, Kidley adds, that normative thing was in response to my education spiel, how you always wanted to know why and your adults acted like you were stupid just because you asked questions. Yeah. Yeah. I worry about becoming a jerk and now challenging that stuff. Now that I have had that awakening, you know, I am very, very hard on teachers or people who are trying to educate me about something. And I think that gets in the way of me learning things. So I'm trying to dial that back down again. That's, I guess, a fairly typical response when you have a realization. It's kind of like being a born-again Christian, and then like everything is a sin to you for a while, and then you kind of find the balance, and then you're cool again, or with other non-Christians, or something like that. Or you discover Linux and you become a Linux evangelist and you start poo-pooing all the other operating systems. Or you switch from Mac to Windows or Windows to Mac and then you can't stand. Like operating system war type.
These are all religious-based metaphors, you realize that. Whether people are choosing a technology or, a certain blend of Christianity, it's all, in a way, it's kind of like all comes down to this like religious belief about things.
Yeah, and the basis of religious belief is what? Is it a need to not have questions about what you're doing, do you think?
Oh, I think it's a really complicated thing because I think for some people, they use it as a tool to help develop compassion in themselves. And I think there are other people who use it as a way to divide the world up into good and bad and make things simpler for themselves, or in some cases, people who, as they get older, they become more religious because they realize like they're going to die and they don't want necessarily, they want some certainty about what that outcome is going to be like.
Certainty is something I've been very much aware of as being a challenge for me. I crave certainty. In a way, I crave absolute truth. But I act as a relativist all the time because I don't believe in anything. But I want to believe in something, but I don't. But I want to, but I don't. So that's kind of the loop that I find myself in. I was going to go somewhere with that, but I've already forgotten. The other core belief I have about myself is I have a terrible, terrible memory and can't remember anything. And I wonder to some extent if that is a self-fulfilling belief. And that, like, just by worrying about it, I'm actually taking away precious brain energy away from actually committing it to memory.
Or stressing out so much about it, stress I think can impact people's memory and things.
It gets in the way of actually doing things, which is why I was doing that, trying to come up with this whole taskless, timeless productivity system. So instead of spending all the energy tracking things and worrying if I'm forgetting stuff, which is what I tended to do, maybe if I just worry about it less, become less responsible for feeling that I should be a certain way or living up to other people's nebulous expectations.
Or even just getting out of the whole productivity systems that just feel like you're on a treadmill constantly.
Yeah,
it's like more tasks here, more tasks there. It just doesn't feel very satisfying at some level.
Do you have a productivity system that you use?
Well, it's interesting that you bring it up because I basically just try to keep a system to, again, keep things from falling through the cracks. So I have an online task manager that I use. It's called ToodleDo. It's not necessarily better than any other system, but I use it to track tasks that I need to do, but mostly reminders to pop up later on when I need to rotate my backups or pay a certain bill or things like that. And I'm actually, as part of I'm in the process of playing around with Ruby on Rails again, which I haven't done for a long time. I am working on a task manager that can just work the way I want it to.
Yes.
As a fun thing. I'm calling it Progress Puppy. and it's intended to be a somewhat irreverent task management system because I want to put all these kind of silly JavaScript animations when you when you click on something to mark it as done, it like burns up, or like a huge overlay, like fuck yeah, good job kind of thing shows up. Just again as kind of an exercise to get into it. And then I actually have another side project that I'd like to work on as well, that is a kind of personal finance app that allows you to budget and track your expenses and show you more or less in real time where you're at in terms of your budget. So if like you're halfway through the month, but you're like 3/4 through your budget for eating out or something like that, that category turns red or something, and it kind of warns you, okay, you need to kind of scale this back and do that. Because I have a system right now that's based on GNU Cache, which is like an accounting software you can use with Linux. And I'm kind of behind when I kind of reconcile all my transactions and stuff, because all the statements and stuff come in like a month after they happen. And I'm trying to figure out if I can do things a little bit differently in a more real-time manner with that. That's actually a project that maybe might even be something I put online and
that sounds
as
cool.
a software as a service kind of thing.
If I could somehow figure out a way of doing the productivity tool stuff without, well, I hate data entry for one thing. I hate reconciling statements, and I hate being on top of that kind of stuff. So like that's my mail pile over there. It's been thinned out somewhat, but I generally look at it about once a month, if even. And so like most of my bills are online now, so I can be reactive about it, but that's kind of distract. So like one thing that's really interesting to me in the productivity tool to system design is like reducing the amount of data entry involved, and then doing something that's you might think of it as markerless data entry. So if somehow the data accrues and generates reports as you're entering it. So a lot of my form design is based around things accruing. You can see the pattern develop. So then I've spread things visually, or hey, the input system not use numbers that you enter in, because you can't really get an intuitive sense from that. You have to actually, they're easy enough to understand, but you still have to process them through your brain to get to the second level of seeing what the pattern is, or you can't do any curve fitting. So if there's a way I could like automate that next level of things, or provide some kind of scaffolding, like in the way that the program itself presents the data or presents the prompting. A lot of my form design has a mindset that's built into it, and like there's little things in it that try to evoke mindset. Like in the ETP, there's the groups of task tracking tasks on the right side, upper right side, and each one of them has a subheader. So the more of them you enter, there's supposed to be the sense of increasing, like, okay, I'm putting on more stuff than maybe I should be. Stuff like that, or just reminding it, like the way I phrase things, like, life just happens, like use this area to keep notes on, like, so I'm trying to imply that it's not your fault that all these things are happening. They're just happening. So just absorb them and then don't forget about them. So there's that kind of psychological stuff that I try to put into it. It's interesting in that when translations are submitted for the ETP, they're all different, because not everybody really gets what it is that is important about those prompts. But some people are much more explicit about it, like the Angela Trinidad's Passion Planner, which has become really popular. She's deliberately putting those kind of like philosophical encouraging things in there, but I'm not like that. So I just kind of want to hint at it, and I don't want to like put too much stuff on people. So it's like, be happy, enter a task. No, I'm cranky. Like it's like, did you remember the I had made that annoyed task planner one year? And it was a place for the angry scribble. That was my finest moment of design, I think. You express yourself. I should bring that back. It's like, that is my finest design moment. Now that I think the angry scribble bubble, that was like,
I think a lot of people can relate to it.
I think so. Let's do something about it. Let's see, Killy ads. Let's check in the chat. So how are you feeling? We've gone on for quite some time now.
Yeah, we can probably wrap things up.
Yeah, we can wrap things up.
Let's see. Nobody's going to want to watch all this.
It's like, and it's 90 minutes. That's like a nice length of a young adult movie for old. This is the version of that for, I guess, old people. Let's see. Last chance for anyone in the chat room to ask anything of ZenLinux, which is visiting the Living Room Cafe, a first in the history of these increasingly irrelevant streams that I do.
And you know what's interesting, Dave, is I like to notice this thing too, is so I've seen the inside of your place because of your live streams and everything, and I had this whole concept in my head, this mental model of what it looks like.
Yeah.
And now that I'm here, various assumptions are being filled in, and it's kind of like my perception is now forever changed.
Really?
And I can never go back to what it was before. I just find that interesting sometimes.
So what are some of the things that that stood out to you or did not?
I mean, I haven't really looked through your back porch yet because we've got the shades down right now. But I remember when you mentioned that you were kind of near a nature preserve, I thought of it as like some vast amount of
well, because you're from
stuff.
Portland and you actually are a nature. Yep.
And so and then I realized it's kind of like this particular condo complex and everything. And I don't know. It's just now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'll have to show you the actual nature preserve part of it just to fill out that part. And we'll look out the back. We'll look at the back right now. Sure. What else stands out to you? Does the space seem larger or smaller than you imagined?
Maybe a little bit smaller.
It is, yeah. These are wide-angle cameras, and they tend to.
Right.
So, like for the exciting view of the other condos from the other side.
See, I didn't even realize you could see probably when the leaves and stuff.
Right. Yeah. That's definitely something. Let me switch over to the aux-cam view. So that's the view outside. Usually you can't see those the other units here.
Yep.
And this particular unit is kind of nice because you don't see the density around things. So it feels like if I'm looking at the front, I don't really see anything other than the parking lot. And I look in the back, I just see trees. But there's actually quite a few like condo units there are quite close together back there. And it feels more like an apartment complex. So the cat wants to go outside.
Should I let him out?
Yeah. You can leave the door open. So he will want to come back in at some point. Yeah. So does it feel like a comfortable space?
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's a neat unit. So I live in a condo as well, in townhouse style. So I can appreciate the practicality and everything of it. I hate yard work.
Yeah, I hate yard work.
I love HOAs. I don't mind paying them money because it's less inconvenience and stuff.
Don't have to worry about the roof yourself or like. I'm responsible for windows though. I need to do that.
Yeah,
so
same here.
Sucks. Yeah. So like I'm trying to turn this into a nice kind of casual co-working space when I want to do it. So it worked out pretty well. I mean, it's cool. I didn't originally think of having one of these card things because everything used to be set up over there. But this has actually turned out to be quite useful. Just being able to do like stuff we do, we can kind of move it around, and I can move it on that side if that wasn't there. If I could run a network cage thing above there and run the cables there, then I wouldn't need that thing, and I could freely roll it around to the kitchen and do cooking and stuff like that there. But the big challenge has been to make this space more, to make better use of the space. Like that table is going to eventually go downstairs once I make space for it. So that TV will be mounted on the wall there. And then it'll give me like a couple of feet that in this size of the space, it's going to make a big difference. These tables ended up being too large to use as cafe tables, but they were the perfect size to replace the dining room table that's there, and they are movable. There's another one downstairs. These chairs actually come apart and turn into individual chairs. So there's a modularity here that I think is going to work. But it is small. But
how many square feet?
This is, I would say, this is 15 feet wide this way and 35 feet long that way. That's about 4 feet, I think. So how many feet is that? It's 15 times 35 minus something. I can just ask. Hey, Siri. What is 15 times 35?
15 times 35 is 525.
Oh, it's got to be, well, maybe just the downstairs part of it might be 525 square feet, but.
Yeah. So it's approximately about 500. I would say it's probably more like 450 on each level.
Okay.
So there's 3 times that.
So that's very comparable. Yeah. My wife and I live in an 840 square foot townhouse, and we've got like a couple storage units in the basement, so we got a little more space for that.
Yeah.
It's a nice size. Sometimes I wish I had a garage and I could keep toys and stuff in it, but
right. Yeah.
It kind of just makes me a little more of a minimalist, I guess.
That's true. I've been trying to minimalize, but not very successfully, as
Yeah.
you've seen. This living room cafe thing, though, is like the closest I've gotten to it. I just would like to make it a little bit more comfortable. Like, just this area is still kind of a mess, and once the TV's on the wall, that'd be great. That shelf unit I just recently got, and somehow hauled that home in my car, to the hatchback, and that actually makes a big difference. Just being able to store some more stuff, which maybe is not good for being a minimalist. But I guess that's it. Any other questions? Great discussion. Enjoyed it.
Hey, thanks,
2
Roger.
trophies. Thanks, Roger.
Thanks everybody who tuned into this.
Yes, everybody. All
kind of
3
weird,
of you.
kind of fun.
Dude, there's 8 people watching
my.
this right now. Who are those 8 people? Hopefully people we know. I think that's a record for max peak viewing. Like, we haven't broken the double digits yet, but like, Scott, you're a big part of this success, I would say. Like, milestone on the journey toward future greatness of some kind.
Maybe they're all waiting for bad puns. I don't know if I delivered
They
on
could
that.
be. They're just hanging on the edge of their seats. I do like the whole. I like Kid Lee's "Ghosts Are Jerks" thing.
Yeah.
I like the way that's. Maybe it's from. Is it from experience? You think? Does she know ghosts that are jerks and they've all been terrible? It's not possibly like racist about ghosts, is it?
I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I don't know either. Something to think about.
Well, maybe I will close with a final pun though.
Okay.
Is the fact of the matter is I don't have kids, but I'm always telling dad jokes at work. So I was just wondering, like, does that make me a faux pas? Right? Thank you, everybody. It's been great.
It's been great. So we better log off now. Thanks. So this has been What's Up Dave with special guest Scott. And I guess we're going to stop.
Yep.
All right. Bye. This is where I hit the slate button. This one. And so I let this sit for 10 seconds or so. So it has enough time for the stream to buffer out. Otherwise it cuts off in the middle of it. Stuart has suggested I don't say anything during this part, but you can still see. I guess I could use this slate. What's this one? No, I'm still there. I'll be right back, but that's not true. So we'll go right there. I guess we're good. Stop stream.